We'll open it up to any questions, and then kind of as you prompt us, we'll go ahead and respond and kind of run with stuff. So does anybody have any questions? What's that?
Are we surprised that he needed one? No. He had more blisters on his hand than anybody there. But no, that was a lot of fun. The reason we had blisters is because we spent hours and hours putting together those church benches. And gosh, how many did we put together? Several hundred, right?
We're just a little bit shy of 300.
Yeah, so just a little shy of 300. It was an all-day project. And it was interesting because when we started it, there was only like 2 hammers and like 1 box of nails for 300 benches. And there was like 15 of us there to work. So they had to send somebody into town to actually buy more hammers. And we worked on that all day. And Rick actually worked, I don't know if he really did anything except practicing flipping a hammer. Wish we would have had that video. But yeah, he was real good. What's that? Yeah. It was a lot of fun. We did some great work. Any other questions?
How far is the town from the village?
The best thing is probably to go by time, because even though it might be 10 miles away, the roads are so bad that it can take us an hour to get there, kind of thing. So there was some villages we went to plant churches where we actually drove for an hour and then stayed overnight in a place for several nights while we planted churches. You go ahead.
To get there. It was more like 2 hours to get there, 2 hours to get back. Then when you left the, I don't know if we called that the mission house, but where we went to actually plant the churches, that was another at least hour. It took a long time to get every place that we went. And we had to be adventuresome, and we had to be very close quarters to each other, and it's hot and sweaty and, you know, all that good stuff, but we made it, and we really had a wonderful experience. And it's just, you know, you think that you can't do those things, but you can. You know, you can do whatever the Lord wants you to do. And we grew closer together for that, and the people there were just amazing.
Yeah, in fact, Janice was a real trooper, because in one of the pickups, she rode, and she was kind of extra. So she actually sat on the console in the front, bouncing around for 2 hours back and forth. And she did this a couple days, actually. She really was a big trooper. Yeah, she did a great job. And it was so much fun to watch her plant a church. And she planted 2, I think, or she preached while they planted 2. And it was great to see that. Mark, you got anything?
There's a small cross section that's I'd say about a 15-minute walk or so, and then I'd say the closest major city is about an hour drive if you're lucky. So, yeah.
All right, question in the back.
I know it wasn't a corn dog, but what were you eating that was on the stick?
That was bush meat. Yes. So we determined, was it bush meat, or was that cow? Okay. Yeah.
That was actually beef. They presented it as bush meat, but bush meat is technically rabbits. So they tried to make it sound like it was rats, but it's rabbits. So.
The real question was, what kind of inoculation did you have to have?
It actually was very good, and it was really interesting because when they were grilling it, they were using chicken feathers tied together to brush the meat with like the oil and the spices. And we were just trying to be a little bit adventurous, and luckily nothing bad happened. It was very good. It was very good. It was very good. Oh, sorry. You want to add to that? Did you eat anything fun?
I can't remember what it was called, but I did eat, it's kind of like a tamale that, like we have tamales here, but it's in a ball shape. It's just this big dough ball, and you break it off with your fingers. Of course, you wash your hands first with the water that's in the bottle, and then you just break it off and you dip it in this sauce. And this gentleman, it was his lunch, so one of our team members from the other church, he was like eating half of his lunch, so I only took a bite, and it was pretty good. But the interesting thing, or funny thing, after that we were sitting there waiting for our other team members to join us, and we were sitting for quite a while, and after I ate this young man sitting across from me said, "Omi, Omi." Well, that's what my grandchildren call me. That means, grandma in German. And he's like, "Omi, Omi." And I'm like, "How do you know that my name is Omi?" He was telling me to wash my hands after I ate. So Omi in Ghanaian, I guess, is wash your hands. Steve, did I hear you ask what kind of shots we had to take to get there? For myself, I was late getting them because I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to go. And I couldn't get in with the Portsmouth Health Department, so I went to Passport. So I'm thinking maybe $300 or whatever. Well, so they told me all these shots that I needed, and it ended up being over $1,000. And I'm like, I'm going to have to die, because I can't get these shots. But anyhow, so I narrowed it down and got it down a few $100s. But I took malaria pills, a shot for yellow fever, a shot for cholera, I think it is, and maybe one other shot for food, things that you could get when you were eating foods that you weren't supposed to eat. And we were all very good about not doing that. But Jamie can tell you a story about a lady that ate something that fell off of a tree onto the ground and how sick she got.
All right, so one of the members from the other church that attended, she had decided to eat a fresh mango from the tree, and they had warned us not to eat any fresh fruit, and if we did get fruit, it needed to be cleaned, and then it needed to be peeled. And we just were cautious and just didn't really eat anything except the pineapple that was prepared. But she ate it, and sure enough, she got violently ill and was so dehydrated that we had to put an IV in her and give her fluids and nausea medication and antibiotics. She was very, very sick, and it was really scary because their medications, you really don't know what you're taking. Sometimes the label's scratched off, and I was given a bottle of Phenergan, but nothing was written on there that said Phenergan, so I was giving her medication that I was hoping was Phenergan, so that was a little scary, so we were very cautious because we didn't want to have to be treated there. Luckily, we did not. And there were several sick members from the other team, whether it was respiratory infections, stomach viruses, and all that, so we were pretty lucky. Go ahead.
But those are the exceptions.
Yeah.
I think we all had, at some point or another, had a little discomfort, stomach discomfort, but I want to put a plug in for Imodium. It works great. And this was really, I usually get sick when I'm overseas, and because I had the Imodium, and I just kept, anytime there was even an inkling, as soon as I took it, I wasn't sick this time. So it's not really that dangerous, and it's not, and if you're careful, if you're smart, you won't get sick. Yeah. Yes.
Claire, you got a question? So the baby boy. So the little boy, his name was Musa, and he was a surgical patient. So 2 weeks before we got there, a team of doctors and nurses and surgical staff from the States came out and did several surgeries, which is great. The downside to that is they go back, and there's nobody to do post-op care or wound care checks. So, there was a handful of people that ended up with post-op infections, and this little boy had a pretty bad infection. It was in like the scrotal area, and he had to come and have all the dressing removed and that area cleaned and packed and rewrapped 2, sometimes 3 times a day. And it was, it's very painful, and he would cry the moment he walked into the ICU. As soon as he saw any of us, he would just start crying because he knew it was coming, but it was needed. But last I talked, I'm still in contact with some of the staff at the hospital, and last I talked to them, that he was doing very well and he was on the mend. So it was a very sad experience, but those surgeries are very helpful and very necessary over there. Yeah, Avenel? So they do have surgeons there, some actually great surgeons, but your surgeries are very limited. This is more of a general surgeon. He does a variety of surgeries, including like C-sections and stuff like that, hernia repairs, but some things are outside of his scope of practice. And in that case, sometimes they'll send those patients to Accra, which is the next big hospital to have those procedures done, but not everybody can travel that distance. So these teams come out and they do several hernia repairs and different surgeries that are too difficult for their physicians to handle. So yeah, I mean, they do have a great OR team. They do have to improvise a lot, which was interesting to see. Yeah, Avenel? How are they what? So the doctor there is paid. They don't refuse service. They don't refuse service, right? No. They do get paid. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a program in place. I don't know the ins and outs of that. But the doctor does get paid. Hold on 1 second. You had your hand up? In the hospital? Oh.
Right, because a lot of times the parents are no longer alive. I mean, HIV has been kind of calmed, minimized there, but there's a whole generation of parents that are gone because of HIV and AIDS and malaria, things like that. Yeah.
They do have a school there. Now, I don't know what's required for them to be like board certified, but they do have a school through their hospital that trains their doctors and their nurses. Now, I can go over there and work and volunteer in that hospital. I'm not sure that they could come here and do the equivalent without some additional schooling and certifications and stuff. But yeah, they do have one of the girls that were at the location we stayed helping out, she's in nursing school now. And she brought me her biology book, and she was showing me what they were studying, and it's pretty on point. It really is. Ben, you have a question? Gone. Did you? Janice has a couple.
Well, English is actually the official language of Ghana. But I don't know. Yeah. But we do have a few words.
I have to look at them.
Okay.
I wrote them down. Omi. That's the one I know. Well, when you meet people, let's see, you say, where is it? Indupoi. That's like the greeting. You say indupoi, and then they say la save. Now, we don't really know exactly what that is. Probably something like, hi, how are you, and you bow, and then both parties say na. So you say, in Dupois, they say la seve, and then both of you bow and say na. You ask, this is Seembe Ye Kenya. That is how you ask someone what their name is. And then the Emma Janice would be, I am Janice. And that little boy that you saw me with in the video, his name was Salim. And when they asked that question, he had only been with me for a little while, but I was not able to get his name. It was before I wrote this down or typed it in here because I never could remember it. But interesting enough, he did have a little bit of understanding of English. He stayed with me the entire time we were out there. I mean, he just helped me. He watched. He saw what we were doing. He was just so helpful. A lot of the kids would come alongside and they would be happy to carry the nets and stuff, but then they would just kind of go off and play. But he stayed right there and helped the whole time that we were there. And then it came time, he has a piece of my heart. You know, I left over there. Came time to leave, and I knew that it was getting close, so I looked at him and I took my sunglasses off and I told him that my eyes were brown like his, and he said brown. So I did that because I knew I had heard him say a few little things. And then I told him that God loved him and that I loved him because God loved him, and that I would pray for him every day and that I would never, ever forget him. And he, you know, shook his head. So he got some of that. And then when we got to our cars or our trucks, whatever, he was not there. And then all of a sudden he was there, and he stayed and just waved until we were out of sight. So he has my heart. The kids were just, they were just beautiful and sweet. And a funny thing would happen. Many of these children, especially the toddlers, just started walking or whatever, have never seen a white person. The white ladies are called Salingas. That means white lady. And you're kind of either like a celebrity. They're like, Jamie says, Salinga, Salinga, and they're waving at you and they want you to hug them and touch them, or they're petrified of you. So the little ones who've never seen a white person, they'll be just kind of walking in the village, and then all of a sudden they look up and their eyes fly open wide and they go, ah! And they just start running. You know, they run away. But if you pull out your camera and you take a picture of some of their friends or whatever, then you show it to them. All the kids love to have their picture taken. So then after that, the same ones that are running away from you screaming because they never saw a white person in their little life are coming up wanting their picture taken. So.
I think we have time for one or two more. Yes, Janice.
The video was wonderful, gave us such a nice general look at everything. I'm impressed with the fabrics, the colors, their dressing of the church. So Rick, since you've been there before, is that dressing up typical in their churches? How did you get your clothes? Did they give them to you?
No, Mark and I, and I'll let him talk about the negotiating. We went to an indoor mall. We were told this is an indoor mall, remember? And it was pouring out rain, so we were very happy. And the indoor mall really was a bunch of container units stuck together, and you could walk in one of the stores, but you had to walk out to go to the other ones. But we found a guy who had shirts. And Mark, you want to talk about your negotiating prowess?
I don't think there's much negotiating prowess to it, but we found a guy who found the shirt, and Rick found, I think, this wonderful piece of material here. It looks great on him, and he was very proud of. How much did you pay? 100 and this is Ghanaian money, so it's like $20. So yeah, and then I think I undercut him by like 15, so he was a little upset about that. But yeah, negotiating's a big thing with everything over there, so it's a good stuff.
And our dresses we had made in the sewing shop by the students that are there training, and yeah, so they came and they fitted us for our dresses, and they did a great job. Yeah, they did a real good job.
The interesting thing about that, if I'm getting this story right, Nancy Tolliver, she and her husband came here to talk to us on a Wednesday evening about the mission trip and got us, if y'all remember, interested in going. My understanding is that they didn't have a sewing shop there at the mission until about 2 or 3, I don't know, the last time y'all went. Nancy took materials and took a sewing machine and kind of got that started. And now these young ladies are turning out these dresses, and they're very well made, you know, and purses and little backpack type things, you know, and they're selling them. So it gives them a way to make some money. But to see in just a couple of years' time how far they've come, and that was due to, you know, people like us going from other churches and just starting something up.
That's actually part of what they were using, all the equipment they were using, the machines, I believe, were donated. That's where there's a mention of actually the carpentry shop. That actually came up from all the bench building that we were doing. Because the plan is, 1,000 churches? 2,000 churches. And so the plan is to give each of those churches 10 benches, so they're definitely going to need a carpentry shop. So it's going to be another way that people can earn a little bit of money in the same process.
Question. Oh. Yeah.
So they have to buy their uniforms, and a good number of those children are Muslim children. And their parents, we were in a Muslim area, and it's a soft Islam in Ghana. In other words, there isn't the antagonism that you see elsewhere. Although we did see a couple signs that a facility had been financed by the Republic of Iran and other places like that. But these Muslim parents want a good education for their children. And so they purchase the uniforms and pay the fee that there is for that school. And they have to wash their own uniforms, and they take care of them. Mm-hmm. Tony? Oh yeah, tell.
Well, I've got a wash rag in there just to give me a little height, but they wear this type of thing, and they can twist them and do them in all kinds of different ways. But the ladies that carry this stuff, it is amazing to watch that. I mean, they'll carry something this tall. They carry wood on their heads, just all kinds of things. But they have some kind of little thing that is like it's like a ring, and they'll set it up there. Now, some of them don't have anything, and they can still walk just as good as the ones that have the little ring, but they'll have a little ring to kind of help them balance.
I know, we're running out of time, though. Yes, Earl, quick question. Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody who prayed for us. We felt it. As I've mentioned, God is really moving there, and He is throughout Africa, but this is a particularly unique place. Moose has an apostolic ministry. He has planted over 1,000 churches so far, and he is tasked by the Lord, he believes, to plant 2,000 churches in 10 years. And so far this year, he's planted close to 70. So he's right on course to do that. But we thank you for your prayers. We felt them. We thank you for your financial support. It was a blessing. We were able to hand out almost 1,000 nets. I mean, just fantastic. Thanks to you and others who supported us. And we do want to say that, Lord willing, we're going back in January, February 2021. Okay, it's 2 years from now. So please pray and ask the Lord if you would go with us the next time we go. We will start meeting this fall, about once a month or once every couple months, and we'll start planning out our next trip and fundraising and things like that. But please be in prayer, because we have all been changed by this experience, and we want you to be changed as well. So, Mark, you want to wrap us up and say anything that's on your heart, and then maybe pray to close things?
You want to pray with me? Father God, thank you for this day where we can gather and just reflect on everything that you've done in our lives, Lord, and in the lives of those that we served. Lord, thank you for the family that we have here that is supporting us with their contributions, with their love, with their encouragement, and just building us up so that we could go across the water and continue to serve you throughout this world, Lord. Help us to go into this upcoming season and plan for other missions so we can continue to spread your name, your love, and your mercy and your salvation, Lord. Bless this church and bless this church family. Amen.